Hello, everyone, and welcome to ProLine, courtesy of JimFeisch.com. It's the longest-running sports handicapping show in America. I'm John Cranton in Las Vegas, joined by Jeff Saad. He's been running Las Vegas Sports Services for 14 years. This is our college football preview show, one of the shows that we're doing. We're going to take a look at each college football conference. And today it's going to be the Independents, how they look for the 2014 Gridiron campaign in the fall. And we're going to start with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish with some changes at quarterback off of a winning season. Jeff, how do they shape up for the fall?
Well, they look pretty good. Last year, they're 9-4, 5-7-1 against the spread. The 2013 offense was 39th passing, 80th in rushing. Junior quarterback Everett Golson is back after sitting out a year. In 2012, he had 12 TDs, 6 interceptions. But sophomore Malik Zaire might challenge Golson for the starting spot. Zaire threw for 292 yards and 2 TDs in the spring game. Golson finished with 154 yards on 13 of 24. 3 starters are back on the offensive line. Defense wasn't quite as good as 2012, but they still allowed only 22.4 points per game last year. They have huge losses on defense this year, including nose guard Lewis Nix and Stephen Tuitt. They'll be inexperienced at linebacker, too. As usual, a very formidable schedule here. They got Michigan, Stanford, North Carolina, and Louisville at home. On the road at Syracuse, Florida State, Navy, Arizona State, and USC. With this schedule, John, I don't see anything. I don't see how they can do better than 8-4 year.
So they'll make a bowl, but they won't be a powerhouse team this fall.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a look at the BYU Cougars, another independent team. Cougars are off back-to-back 8-5 seasons, and they weren't covering numbers last year, 5-7-1 against the spread. However, dominant defense is why they were 9-4 under the total. And BYU Cougars are going to be very good in 2014. You got 8 starters back on offense, 6 on this powerhouse defense. The offense averaged 30.2 points per game, 226 yards passing, and 267.3 yards rushing per game. That ground game was 10th in the country, and they're going to be just as dominant because of the dual threat junior quarterback in Taysom Hill. He had 19 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, throwing the ball 2,938 yards passing, only 54% completions, but it's his legs that are absolutely dynamic. He led the Cougars with 1,344 yards rushing, 5.5 yards per carry, along with 10 touchdowns. And he's not alone either in the backfield. They got the junior running back, Jamal Williams. This is his 3rd season in the backfield. The previous 2 years, 775 yards rushing and 1,233 yards rushing. So he is a force and experience. The wide receivers are raw with 6'6" Nick Kurtz and speedy sophomore Mike Davis. He was actually a defensive back last year. So they have some talent, speed, just not a lot of experience, but they don't throw the ball anyway. And on the plus side for the ground game, boy, this offensive line is absolutely loaded. They got 11 guys on that offensive line who played, 10 of the 11 guys who played, saw significant time last year, are back, including DeAndre Wesley, Michael Yeck, Solomon Cafu, and Brock Stringham, and Ed Fusi. So they are really low. This is going to be one of the best ground attacks again in the country. The defense the last 3 years, look at these numbers. They allowed 20, 14, and 22 points in a mixture of each of the last 3 seasons. Well, that ranked 22nd, 3rd, and 22nd in the nation. This has been a powerhouse defensive team. They got 6 starters back. Do have some changes going on at a linebacker, but they do have junior Remington Peck as a lone returning starter. They do have some guys who saw very significant time on the depth chart. They got linebackers Bronson Kafusi and 6'5" Alini Four. He saw some time, and the secondary is really strong, including junior cornerback Trent Trammell. He hurt his knee in the spring and missed the entire season a year ago, but he's ready to go this season, adding depth and talent. Plus, senior free safety starter Craig Bills is back. He has 78 tackles, 2nd on the team, and a couple of interceptions. So it's really a talented, deep team with a lot of experience. When you look at the schedule for BYU, September really is challenging. They got a long road trip to UConn, and then they got to play at Texas. Now, remember that Texas game a year ago? BYU was a 7-point underdog. Well, they whipped Texas 40-21, so clearly a revenge game for Texas. But overall, with the talent depth, I can see more than the 8 wins they've had in each of the last 2 years, maybe 10 wins and a bigger bowl game. All right, Jeff, Navy is a very fast team that has been covering numbers of late, including last year. How do they look?
Yeah, 9-4 set up, 9-4 against the spread last year. They have 8 returning on offense, 7 on defense. The 2013 offense averaged 33.5 points, 85 2.9 yards passing. They do that rarely. I think that was last in the country. But 325 yards rushing. That was second in the country. Junior quarterback Keenan Reynolds, 15-6 as Navy starting quarterback. He's posted a 6-2 record as a freshman and 9-4 last year, as I said. Threw for 8 touchdowns, 2 picks, 1,057 yards, and ran for 1,346 yards last year, 4.5 yards per carry, and 31 touchdowns. His 31 rushing TDs were the most by a quarterback in NCAA history for one season. Junior fullback Chris Swain and senior running back Jeffrey Whiteside, and they're back. And the ground game, of course, as usual, is loaded. Navy finished number 1 in the country in fewest penalties per game last year, 2.62. Defense allowed only 24 points per game. That's pretty good for them. The defense held 8 of 13 opponents below the scoring average for the season. This year, the schedule is tougher. The opening versus Ohio State at home, then at Air Force, home versus Notre Dame. They've won 8 in a row at home, and they play only 4 road games. I'm looking for Navy this year to have another good season, 8-4, I would say, John.
Okay, well, you look at Navy. I'm going to take a look at Army, and a very different program here. 3-9 record last year, 4-7-1 against the spread, 7-5 under the total. They do have 5 starters back on offense, 5 on defense, but we have there's still going to be a running team, but they do have new looks on the coaching staff. They're bringing in Jeff Monken to run the program. He's 46 years old. It's his first year. However, he arrives from Georgia Southern. Now, that team ran the football every play, which is what we've seen Army do, and that's not going to change. To put it in perspective, Monken, he was an assistant coach for Paul Johnson when Johnson was at Navy and at Georgia Tech. So you know about Johnson's option running system, and that's just what Monken also runs. So Navy's not going to change that. When he was at Georgia Southern, his teams led the NCAA in rushing in 2012, just under 400 yards per game. In 2011, his Eagles team was ranked number 1 in the FCS poll for 7 weeks. So he's used to winning. He's very good at building programs, and he loves to run the football. So he's inheriting an Army team that was 3rd in the nation in rushing last year, 309.8 yards rushing per game. The quarterback situation is fluid because Monken's got to find somebody. Does have a returning starter in Angel Santiago, 592 yards passing, but 593 yards rushing. But also you got A.J. Shore, who is more of a passer, and a couple of kids that he's going to look at in freshman quarterback Matthew Kaufman. And Shore, though, he's the guy who's been running the first team in the spring. So not sure about who's going to be behind center, but we do know they're going to be running the football. And he's got a very good fullback in senior Larry Dixon. He averaged 6.4 yards per carry last year, 705 yards rushing. Also got Tony Giovanelli back. He averaged 7.4 yards per carry, only 223 yards rushing. So there's talent in the backfield, and you know this team is going to run. It's the defense that are the big question marks. They were not very good, giving up 31.6 points per game. They do have some returning talent up front, but it really all depends on how this coaching staff can get these guys to improve. And then the schedule, they're going to open with Buffalo, and then they got 3 straight road games. At Stanford is one of them, a long road trip, and they got to play Wake Forest and Yale. Then they got home games against rivals Air Force and Navy, and all told they got 5 road games. So it's not a great schedule, particularly that trip way out to Stanford, which could beat them up. So I don't look for a winning season from Army again, but I do think they have a very good coaching staff in place with a good track record of success. So I see success for Army down the road, but not particularly this season. All right, make sure you check out JimFeist.com for plays from Las Vegas Sports Services, which Jeff runs, as well as Mr. Vegas, Jim Feist, and Red Hot Raws. Also, more football previews will be available at JimFeist.com. Make sure you check out that website for all the free stuff, and we'll see you next week with more college football previews.